Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. So the European Commission restricting very small restrictions on the use of credit default swaps, which should be banned. They should simply be outlawed because they're a form of insurance without meeting the legal requirements to be an insurance underwriter. And they also want to ban short sales unless you can prove you have access to the underlying security. Now, remember the expectations, right? We were told by Barroso, wait for October. Well, it's practically October. This is it. There's no Tobin tax here. There's no tax on financial turnover. Hey, Barroso, that's pathetic. There's no ban on short sales. You should ban shorts on European stocks, European government bonds, and you should ban naked credit default swaps at the very least. You probably ought to ban collateralized debt obligations also. So you see what is not here. And various people, I think the French Green Party has a statement out about how ridiculous and pathetic this stuff is. But at least it's something, whereas, of course, here we have just about nothing with Obama, the Wall Street puppet, running the show as he does. So let's just before we now switch to the primaries and so forth, what's the problem of the U.S. ruling elite, right? We know the banksters rule, right, the Wall Street finance oligarchs. There is now a depression with high unemployment, 10%, 20%, 25% in reality, 10% officially. Their basic problem is that the foreclosures, the unemployment, the arrogance of Wall Street, their thievery, generates tremendous resentment. So what do? You've got to channel that rage of the masses against the masses themselves. In other words, you've got to dupe people into wanting to cut their own throats. And without Obama, you couldn't do it. If Obama or the Democrats had taken the lead of an anti-Wall Street pitchfork brigade, they could have channeled mass rage where it belonged, against the people that actually created the derivatives panic. That would be Diamond, Pandit, Blankfein, Mack, Lewis, now succeeded by Moynihan, I guess it is, and these characters. As Obama said to them, I'm the only one between the pitchforks and you. Well, that means Obama's getting skewered by the pitchforks. All the progressive causes are skewered by the pitchforks. And a lot of decent candidates are getting swept away. And you've got the Tea Party fanatics coming in. Now, what's their program? Their program is the program of the most aggressive wing, the most reactionary wing of finance capital. That is to destroy entitlements, to destroy Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, child labor laws, minimum wage, food stamps, you name it. They're against it. They want the law of the jungle, the full fury of the Depression visited on the naked flesh of the American people. That's the Tea Party as it is right now. So you've got to essentially use social demagogy of the Tea Party type to make the American people cut their own throats. It's not going to be that easy with 44% of households benefiting from Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid, but they are going to try it. And the main question is, how soon can you dump Obama? Because as long as Obama's there, this demagogy will work. It will tend to be more and more effective. Naturally, there's a countervailing thing. As the Tea Party fanatics win some elections, the monstrous quality of many of their candidates comes to the fore. Let's take the obvious one. This is now Delaware, right? So here we have now a new reactionary imbecile appears over the horizon, and this is Christine O'Donnell, who has defeated the liberal Republican, and he was an odious figure, needless to say. The treacherous liberal Republican Castle has now been defeated. But notice, Christine O'Donnell, 10 years ago, was on television as a warmonger for Bush, supporting Bush's war policies. She was on O'Reilly 10 years ago, saying that stem cell research means that they were crossing, essentially interbreeding humans with mice to create mice with human brains. I think with her, they created a human with the brain of a mouse. She just had it a little bit backwards. She's been on Fox. She's been on all kinds of, she was on Glenn Beck when he was on CNN. So this person is an operative. But now you look at her. The story is a fraud in her personal life, right? It used to be famous. There were some people that were famous in New York City for using matching funds and federal candidate payments to make money, to buy houses in Greenwich Village, right? There are all kinds of stories about this. This seems to be what O'Donnell does, that she has no income, she runs for office, and uses her campaign money for her personal expenses. In other words, she's a con artist, and she is essentially embezzling. Now, we're told that yesterday she got $1 million money bomb from reactionaries, Wall Street characters like the former governor of Massachusetts up there, who is Mitt Romney, and she also got money from Demented, whatever his name is. Again, politicians who are now trying to represent this extreme wing of finance capital, right, the most radical. This simply means, I think, based on her track record, more money to embezzle, that O'Donnell can now embezzle more money. A lot of this money won't go for campaign advertising. It'll go to pay off her debts, and you'll probably see her showing up in a Rolls-Royce or a Bentley, whatever it is. It's also interesting that among the reactionaries themselves, there is a split about whether a gutter snipe of the type of O'Donnell is presentable, whether you can actually get anywhere with somebody like this. Now, this is interesting because it represents evil fighting evil, and this, unfortunately, is one of the main ways that the amount of evil in the world is decreased. You have Hannity, Limbaugh, Levin. These are the pure fanatics, the 1,000% fanatics who demand total obeisance, total support, all the money in the world for O'Donnell so she can embezzle more. But there were authoritative reactionaries who don't agree. Karl Rove, the architect, says that she's nutty, she's unelectable, she's got a 10% chance of winning. And from the neocon side, we have Krauthammer saying that this goes beyond what William Buckley would have recommended because she's, of course, extremely reactionary, but she's probably not electable, he says. It's also important to see that the sort of neutral technicians, the Charlie Cook, Larry Sabato, Rothenberg, these people, right, the experts all say she's probably unelectable no matter how much money she has, right? And she's been on television a lot, Marr and O'Reilly and Glenn Beck over a long time. She's actually quite a public figure, although it didn't really amount to anything. Now, what does this indicate? If you look at the history of the evolution of proto-fascist and fascist movements, you will see that some of the elements that are attracted to this are, frankly, from the underworld. They're shady, marginal characters. In the 1920s and 30s, this typically took the form of thieves, pickpockets, pimps, con artists, and so forth. In the modern world, it's obviously a little bit different, and it tends to be more in this area of financial advisors, practitioners of financial fraud, rent seekers who have figured out ways to get money from the government or from others through various kinds of political demagogy. That seems to be where we are now. And I think there's an embarrassment, the thing that motivates Rove and Krauthammer to advance their doubts after the woman won the Republican primary. Of course, the Republican primary, they say, oh, it's a tsunami. 60,000 Republicans came out in Delaware. This is not a tsunami. This is minuscule. This is, 10% of the voters in Delaware. That it's revealing the wormy underside, right, the scurrilous quality of a lot of these people who are now being brought up and given big money. And we'll be back in a minute.